Hi, welcome back to my YouTube channel, or welcome if you're here for the first time. This video is on converting fractions to decimals, and we're working with tenths and hundredths only. Tenths and hundredths. Alright, so first things first is we have to have some vocabulary. We need to get some vocabulary in here. So we're talking about here in place value, we have our whole number, we have our tenths, and we have our hundredths. Now, the way I think about this is in the form of money, because people seem to understand money the best. When we're talking about tenths, that's our dimes. And the reason why it's our dimes is because it takes 10 dimes to make a whole. So 10 dimes makes a whole, and that's our tenths place. And then we have our hundredths, and our hundredths are our pennies. And our hundreds are represented because it takes 100 pennies to make one whole dollar. So that's how we look at that when we're thinking about our place value and we're thinking about our decimal points. All right? And then we have our fractions, which our tenths are represented by a 10 in the denominator and whatever our numerator is. So I'm just going to put N for numerator. And our hundredths are represented with a 100 in the denominator and whatever the numerator is. So that means out of 100 pieces to make a whole, hundredths, 10 pieces to make a whole. All right, so that's what we're talking about when we're talking about converting our decimals to fractions, or fractions to decimals. All right, so we're going to start with this paper. This is called Fractions and Decimals Equivalency. Get the focus a little bit, slightly better. All right, so first thing I have to do is there's directions. I need to read them. And I'm going to take out what I comprehend from this problem, what information is in there that's important for me to know in order to be successful. So when I look at this particular problem, write this fraction as hundredths in decimal form. So what I need to know from that is, first of all, I'm writing in hundredths. So I know that I'm either dealing with two place values after the decimal point, or I'm dealing with a 100 in the denominator. That's first thing. So comprehending what the question says. Now I continue in decimal form. So that's the other part that tells me what I need to know, which tells me I have this. So I'm working in decimals. That means I should have two place values after the decimal. This is in the tenths place. Remember, this is tenths. This is hundredths. This 8 is in the tenths place because it's above a 10, so the 8 goes in the tenths place. I know I have to have it in hundredths because that's what it asked, so I put my place value 0 in order to make 0.80 hundredths. All right, question number 2. Write this decimal as tenths in fraction form. So comprehending, I don't care about the number yet, I'm comprehending what is here. So tenths. So I'm either dealing in point with one blank, or I'm dealing in a 10 in the denominator. In fraction form. So that tells me right here I'm dealing with this one. So I know my denominator is 10. And I look at this, and I look at what's in the tenths place, and I write that number as my numerator, which is 1. I don't write 10 because that's in the hundredths place. I just write the 1. The next question. Again, I don't care about the number. Write this decimal in hundredths in fraction form. Hundredths means either point blank blank or 100 as my denominator. Fraction form tells me I'm going to this one. All right, so now when I look at this, I see I have 5.2. Well, this is if I was writing it in hundredths, but there's no whole number. I have to put a blank in front for my whole number. So 5.2, that's in tenth. Oh, wait. We're doing fraction. 5 is my whole. I know I have to have 100. And there's a 2 in the tenths place, but remember I have to have hundreds, so I need to have a 20. Write this fraction in tenths in decimal form. So it wants it in tenths. So one of the easy tricks to do is I could think of it as I should have blank, because there's a whole number, and one blank in decimal form. Or it would be, and this is already in fraction. Okay, so in decimal form, my whole number goes here. I look at what's in my tenths place, and that gets written there, 0.7. Or the good thing about this, it's already in hundredths. I can mark off a place value 0 in the numerator and in the denominator, and it gives me my fraction, which helps me see that it's 3.7. Lexi walks her cat 4/10 of a mile each day. Write this fraction in hundredths in decimal form. Hundredths, decimal form. So I've got my tenths, because this is over a 10, that goes there, and I have to put a 0 here. Joel made 9.5 quarts of applesauce. 9.5. Write the written number in hundredths in decimal form. So hundredths in decimal form. My whole number, hundredths, 9, 5, and I have to have a 0. So that's how you go about doing this particular, how you convert from decimals to fractions and fractions to decimals when dealing with tenths and hundredths. Remember, you're thinking about how many place values after the decimal point. Whole numbers go before the decimal point. And if you're talking about fractions, it's either a 10 or 100. Most of those that miss this, it was because we weren't reading the problem and getting what they were asking for. Thanks for visiting my channel. I hope this video helps. Have a great day.